Good evening. You're listening to Adrenaline Radio. This is Fred Blanchard, your host of Adrenaline Motorsports. I'm going to introduce my in-studio guest. It's Mike Lefevers of MyTech Race Engines. And Mike, what I'd like to talk to you about is what got you interested in motorsports. I know that it started at a very early stage of your life. I think even at the beginnings of high school, if I recall in our conversation here. Why don't you shed a little light on the beginnings there in high school, if you kind of let us know how this all started.
Wow, Fred. First, let me thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And starting back high school, wow, it probably started even before then. I mean, like most young kids, I played with train sets and slot cars and stuff as I was growing up, but high school was certainly the point where the technical side started to get involved in my life, and the math started making sense, and all the things that we were learning in school. So we were working on our cars in school, in auto shop, and doing all those sorts of things that everybody else did, and going out and running around on the weekends at the local hangouts, and then go to the races, the drag strips and such, and see what was going on there and see who was doing what. So yeah, that's how we all started, I guess. Well,
you're the product of what we know now as the 50s and the 60s and that era, the 70s, when they had drive-ins to go to and gathering places where people liked cars and enjoyed some of the hot rods that were of the era, and then eventually going out to the drag strips and other places other than drag strips, of course, but we won't talk about that right now. But you mentioned that there were several people that influenced you in this regard. Why don't you shed a little light on that, if you would, please?
Well, I used to read all the hot rod magazines and such when I was in school still, and I should have been studying more, but I was very interested in the sport overall and the industry in general. And we had an opportunity. The high school I went to was in a district where there were 3 high schools, and Mickey Thompson, who was a very famous racer back in the 60s, went to one of those high schools. And when he became a successful businessman, he offered a scholarship to the auto shop the best auto shop student at each one of the high schools, which was, I went to San Gabriel High School, Alhambra, and Mark Keppel were the other 2 schools in the district. And I happened to win the scholarship in 1975, and was fortunate enough to be at a dinner with Mickey and be presented a check to continue my education and such. And that was kind of the springboard that got me determined. Even before that, I was really sure that was what I wanted to do with my life, was be in motorsports and the performance end of it in particular. But that was the cusp of when it all started to roll for me.
What kind of jobs at that time in your life were available to a young guy like yourself, interested in cars and motors and things of that nature?
I guess it depended on how determined you were. I mean, you could go work at a regular repair shop and learn how to hot rod up a little bit if you wanted to. In my case, I wanted to be a little more than that. I had done the regular repair shop stuff, and I wanted to get involved with somebody who was really into the racing end of things or the performance end of things. So, I started grabbing the phone book and looking through the yellow pages just to see who was in the industry in my area, someplace that I could ride my bike to or drive a car locally to go see if I could get a job. And that's basically what I would do. I would just sit and peruse the phone book, because this was long before the internet existed.
What about car clubs and things like that? Was there anything like that in your area when you were growing up?
Well, they were, but they were more geared towards fun. It was, a bunch of guys would have a party, and we'd print flyers, and people would come to the party, and we would make some money as a club, and then the club would take the money, and we might go to the races and pay for our entries and things like that by generating these parties and doing it. So, but in terms of the clubs, like what I think you're getting at in the days when the screwdrivers and the gear grinders and some of those other clubs were around that were focusing on racing, that's not the kind of club that we had.
Well, I meant street rod clubs, and that was the back in the day too. I mean, they had a lot of those, and everybody had these club jackets on when they went to the drive-ins, and they were kind of noted by that, and that was the only reason I brought that up. So, but yeah, I was just wondering that was pretty much. But you got on the serious side of it, so kind of let us know how that came about.
Gosh, I really can't say. I just know that it was in me. I guess if you talk to enough people in this business, you'll find that there's some of them that are just driven to be as the best that they can be at a certain arena, or they want to learn as much as they can learn, and that's the way it was. It was inside of me, and I wanted to. The way you in this industry, the way you show your ability is definitely by performing, and you get out on the racetrack and you perform, or if you build an engine and you put on the dyno, your performance is what makes you who you are.
We talked about things that happened on the drag strip. You graduated from your regular street car. What else did you have back in those days, Mike?
Well, originally I had a 67 Chevelle with a big block in it. And that's what I started out going to the drag strip in that. Then I started helping other people. I'd see somebody else's car and think, wow, that's really neat. They're what they're doing, and hang out. And then pretty soon, the next thing you know, I might be helping them. And so I got some experience with faster cars and more technical equipment through other people, and then eventually I bought a dragster, what there was of a dragster in a box, and NHRA had started, the National Hot Rod Association had started a new class at the time called Econo Dragster, which was basically taking an engine out of your car and with minimum modifications, maybe a little tiny bit of head work and a carburetor and some headers and a camshaft, and you put that in the dragster and you ran it, and that's where I kind of started moving into a little more aggressive field, if you will, in terms of the racing. How about
wins and trophies and things like that? That all came pretty hard, I know.
Oh yeah, well, back then there were no trophies or wins. I got a few plaques and things like that for performance awards and things, but no, we weren't winning. We were just learning at that point. I guess I feel like at that point in my life, I was doing it on my own because I had such desire. But as I started, we're still not even hardly 20 years old at this point. So once I reached that point, though, I started getting involved in other businesses and jobs, I should say, that allowed me to learn more about being successful in the industry. So that's kind of where we're headed to next, I guess.